Hi everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. So I am here with somebody, I can't really believe how this all came to be. It was very serendipitous. But this is Lauren Tillman. I got your name right?
You did.
Okay.
You did.
This is Lauren Tillman, an actor and a former personal assistant and roommate of Marilyn Manson's. And we're going to get into that in a moment. But what's so cool is that Lauren actually lives down the street, about 20 minutes away from me, right? Yeah. And we didn't realize this until we were trying to arrange this interview. And I think I looked at your Instagram page and you said something about Azle, maybe.
Yeah, that's where I was born. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Azle, Texas.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, I'm in the DFW area. And so anyway, I think this is really great. And I'm so happy you could be here. So anyway, I guess, just going to jump right into it. How did you meet Marilyn Manson?
So, am I supposed to look at you or the camera?
The way I tell people to do it is pretend like there's another person there, and sometimes you look at me and sometimes you look at them as you feel like it.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
All right. So, where did you meet Marilyn Manson?
So, when I first started getting into acting, Salem was the show that I worked on in Louisiana, and he was a character. Any true Manson fan would know that he, I've already forgotten his character's name, actually. I probably shouldn't say that. He's going to get mad at me. Thomas? No. Anyway, that's how I met him, was on Salem, and Manson and Shane West were attached at the hip. They would hang out all the time. So whenever we weren't filming, there was a little bar that we would, the main actors would go to, and, some of the locals would go. Obviously, I'm not local to there. I'm local to here, but my best friend at the time, we were hanging out, and then the girl that I was seeing, she and Shane had this weird, he was interested in her.
Was Shane West? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I think he likes the younger girls. Nothing against that. She was of age. Right? She was 21 years old.
Grooming alert.
Yeah. But yeah, so they were interested, and that's how I ultimately ended up getting to talk to Manson, was because Shane would kind of, have, my girlfriend in tow, and, since I was dating her, I got to go wherever she went. So whenever we would go to the bars, we would hang out, but it kind of just ended up being repetitious, night after night of hanging out, and we would just kind of talk, and it was never oh my God, I'm hanging out with Marilyn Manson. It was just like, I'm hanging out with these really cool guys that, people happen to know.
So just a little bit of trivia here, I guess. What was Salem about? Is that a stupid question? Was it about the Salem
Not
witch
at all.
trials?
I mean, a lot of people, I've said, the show that I worked on, and a lot of people are just kind of look at me like, okay. But it was about the Salem witch trials back in the 1800s when everything was segregated between Puritans, which is what I was lucky enough to play. I got to be real clean, and however, bless those poor people, because they had to wear so much clothes. I mean, those women had to wear the butt bumps that held up the skirts, and I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, okay, so, just so you guys know, I'm transgender, female to male. So when I was acting on that show, I was, the female Puritan. So I got to learn how all the things that they had to wear back then. So, I've always really loved acting on period pieces. So it's very enlightening.
I would love to see a photo too. Do you have a photo of yourself?
Got a million.
Okay, so this was filming in Louisiana. That seems like a strange place to film something like that.
I thought the same thing, but they film a lot of stuff. They're filming a bunch of stuff in New Orleans, but I feel like it's more like TV shows and not
Well, I have a lot of family in Louisiana, and I do remember my grandma several years ago saying that Louisiana offers some kinds of special tax breaks or something to movie studios, as there's a financial incentive to come in to get. Anyway,
makes sense.
But so you're in Louisiana, and Manson is playing a character on the show on Salem, and then sort of through this confluence of events and people knowing, mutual acquaintances or friends or whatever, you hang out with him regularly, basically. I'm just curious, from the perspective of someone who was not a fan. Like you told me you like his music, okay, like me, like you like his music, but you were not like, oh, Marilyn Manson's, super fan.
Right, not a worshiper, I would call myself.
Yeah. So what was your impression just at that point, just when you're hanging out with him, like you said, nightly? What was he like? How would you describe him?
The one word that comes to mind is smart, and I know that sounds pretty basic to say and maybe a little strange to call like a rock god, but I say smart because I could just sit there and listen to him talk, and not even like any kind of like big-headed talk. It wasn't him like talking about himself. Now it was talking about memories and stories that he had from younger experiences that he had. And it was just wild, and it was almost a starstruck moment, but only because you're sitting there and you're like, wow, all the stuff that you went through or experienced is so cool.
I see. It's
Everybody's
like you're
got a story.
respecting him as a person, basically, and not like idol or whatever. So he very intelligent, and we're going to get into the allegations against him in a little while, because as it turns out, Lauren ended up living with Manson for a few weeks, and so was able to observe him, more closely. But just in this early period, I'm just curious, hanging out with him night after night. I guess drinking, people were kind of loose drinking and stuff, right? Did you ever see a bad temper, or did you ever see this kind of like aggressiveness or hostility that some of the accusers have talked about?
Not at all. The only time he ever kind of got a little bit irritated was when, ironically enough, when I took him to this, it was an event at this dispensary, Showgrow. It was just the panic of getting ready for the show. It was like, oh my God, where's my makeup? Where's this? Where's that? And that was the only time he really raised his voice with me. Anything else was just, very calm and very chill. And I was really surprised. I didn't think that it was going to get crazy or anything like that, but I was pleasantly surprised that, he's not, wild. It's just at his house, he is just a normal person.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because so there've been like a couple of men who have said, there've been a couple of men, Wes Borland and Dan Cleary, who have said that, we were on tour with Manson and we saw this monster that has been described. And one of Manson's former assistants who's suing him, Ashley Walters, claims that there's this like circle of fear around Manson, that everybody around him is like basically like walking on eggshells. That wasn't what you observed or felt? No,
not at all. And there's no dungeon in the downstairs or whatever. Like, I stayed in this little room. His house, the old house, he didn't live there anymore, but
which house is this?
The Troy house. It was on Troy.
Is that the one that he just moved out of?
Yes.
Okay. So, and also, I should have clarified this. People are going to be like, what time period are we talking about? So, we should have done that, and I may go back and edit it or not.
We didn't even think about it.
It's kind of amusing anyway. But okay, tell us the time frame. So you met him on Salem when?
I'm really bad with dates, so please forgive me, but it was roughly 2016.
2016. Okay, and then we're going to talk about this in a moment. But you moved in with him for several weeks. When?
It's the same year. So Salem filmed approximately from January to April, and then right after that, I literally had enough time to pack all of my stuff into a laundry basket. Didn't have time to wash the clothes. Just threw all my laundry in a basket and took off for California, because he said he needed me as soon as possible. So I packed up my things and was there by probably the first week of May.
Wow. So tell me the circumstances. We've talked about this, but tell our audience the circumstances of how you went from being this person that he hung out with casually to then someone that he asked you to be his personal assistant, right? You moved out to LA. So how did that come to be?
There's a couple of instances that happened that really kind of paved the road for that. So one, we were in his hotel room, or we were walking into the hotel room. Okay, so the room that Marilyn Manson was in at this particular time that I'm talking about, I walked in and I looked at the room and I was like, wow, the hotel put you in this room? So that little thought is exactly what he has said multiple times of why he decided to hire me. Was that, he thought that I would try and really fight for him, so to speak. But the second thing is that it was late at night. We were always filming really late at night, and I guess Paula had decided to, leave and pursue other things. And he said that he needed somebody right then and right there. He said, "I need you. Can you come as soon as you can to California?" I said, "Absolutely." So I dropped.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and I can see just the little bit I've been around you that you're a really smart person, but also very chill. So you go to LA and you stay, and basically what happened is like you stayed there for a few weeks with Manson while you looked for an apartment, or remind me
Well,
again?
what the original goal was is that Manson he was either paying rent or he had purchased, I think it was more along the lines he was paying rent for an apartment for Lindsay. And I don't know what the situation was there. It's not my business, but he was going to put me in that apartment. But to be honest, it's been so long, I've already forgotten what happened. I think maybe that they lost their key or something happened that prevented me from being able to go to the apartment. So Manson was like, just come here, we'll figure it out. Well, I guess I wasn't, too bad of a roommate because he decided to keep me. I didn't stink or anything. So, but yeah, he decided to just let me stay.
Awesome. That's interesting. Lucky. And so you stayed there for how long? Several weeks?
Almost a month.
Almost a month. Okay.
Almost a month. Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened then for you to leave? Did you end up getting another job, or kind of how did that?
Well, he was about to leave for tour anyway, so he was going to try and get me on the band's bus. I guess they take 2 buses on tour. I'm not really sure, which makes sense because Manson needs his own bus anyway. But he was going to try and get me on that bus as like part of the wardrobe, but that ended up falling flat. But so it was just like a kind of end to the personal assistant, and then he needed to move on and do his tour thing. So I just didn't really end up getting able to be on the.
You were just kind of basically like there to kind of help for a particular period of time. Almost kind of reminds me of like a traveling nurse or whatever, where they're needed for like a few weeks or a month.
Yes,
oh, that's cool.
That was me.
Well, so but basically like you just to kind of I'd like to reinforce to the audience at times what I think is important about what's being said. So just to kind of set this up here is that you at the time you were, I don't want to put this in a dumb way, but like you were a woman. You looked like what a woman looks like.
Of course.
But and so I guess what I'm trying to say is like, this was basically more or less the equivalent of, Manson's living with a woman, and you would think, I would imagine, if he had what his accusers have described as this, and even like Wes Borland, Dan Cleary have described as this really like aggressive hostility toward women and abusiveness and everything, I would think you would have seen at least at one point some flash of that. Did you ever see, I'm sure you got stressed out occasionally with stuff, you're his assistant for a period of time, but did you ever see any behavior that you would describe when you were living with him as abusive or misogynist or predatory or anything? No? Not
one bit. He's actually a very... this may seem strange, but he's a very affectionate person, and I'm not saying affection in like any kind of bad way, like groping anybody, but we would sit right next to each other on his couch, watching TV, and I was never uncomfortable around him. I always felt safe, and I felt very, very comfortable around him. I never saw him any kind of aggressive behavior. I never saw any of that. And Lindsay was there too when I was there.
Who's his wife and has been with him for years now. And you were saying that
she was there too.
So he was with her during this period, right? And so did you ever observe any abusiveness toward her? No.
I never heard anything. I mean, even though, there was a level, I'm down here and they're up here, the house was still pretty open. You could, if anything were to, be screaming or shouting or somebody needing help, I would have heard it, and I didn't hear anything. And there was no, locking me in the bedroom downstairs like, previous assistants have said. There was no locking me, keeping me against my will, making me, not eat.
Did he try to pimp you out to other rock stars?
Maybe. We won't talk about that.
Oh my god! Did he ever force you to watch Groupie?
No comment.
So one thing I'll ask in a moment is just any particular, fond memories that you have, or just kind of stuff that people might be curious about. But again, to get the important things out of the way, given your experience with him, and that it's so different from what these accusers have described, and the personal assistant who's suing him, Ashley Walters, has described, like, do you feel comfortable in making a comment on what you think is going on, or how do you make sense of that in your mind? Well, actually, let me put it this way. I'm going to couch this. Sorry, this is a better way of putting it. I don't want to quite put you on the spot. When you first heard these allegations against Manson, did you, I guess maybe like on TV or on the internet or something like that, right?
I think it was the news, actually.
Yeah.
I think that it come out on the news.
So, what was your reaction? What did you think?
I couldn't believe it. I mean, I think the very first one I saw was obviously the Evan Rachel Woods, but it was just kind of like, so you decide to date a rock star, and you think it's just going to be like rainbows and butterflies. I'm not saying that it wasn't, that anything that they said was true, but it's not going to be. You're dating a rock star. You're dating somebody that is known to have really wild performances.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he's probably maybe a little freaky in the bedroom, but not in any type of bad way. You are choosing to date, to go out, to go to his house. You are choosing to do these things. He may try and ask you to come, but he's not going to force you to do anything. So to me, it was just like, this is obviously blown way out of proportion. This is probably like, maybe he gave you a dirty look and you're deciding to, take it so far off the wall. It's just like, he said, she said kind of thing. But do I believe it? No.
And so even as all these different accusations piled on in that I guess that like week-long period in February, you thought from the beginning, this is not right, this is not accurate?
I felt like it was some kind of domino effect, like one said something and then all these other women. I honestly think they're in it for money. I think that they're trying to hit him while he's down, and really just kind of stack it, just kind of like you said, just kind of stack it all on top of each other. And I think they're in it to try and get money out of him.
You were around him when he was with Lindsay. I guess you were around him, when he was around other women. I'm not saying like he was dating other women at the time, but just like you saw him around women, and so you never observed, and you yourself were a woman at the time. You never observed misogyny or abusiveness, or there was never a time. Was there ever a time when he said something to a woman where you're kind of like, oh, I wouldn't want someone talking to my mom, or my sister that way, or no? No.
He has a very interesting sense of humor, and it's just fun to listen to him talk. Like I still to this day, I recorded a little clip of what the night that we were in the hotel room. He was talking about a little boy. Because we were talking about this word, and it was like impetigo or impetigo, and it was a weird word. But he was talking about this little boy, and he said he weighed. This is the unique sense of humor he had. He said this little boy weighed as much as a dying sun.
A dying sun. That's very poetic. See, I can see where like the lyrics now. I can see where they come from. That's interesting. Yeah. Are there any stories that you want to share in particular, like that? Like that was a funny story, actually. Is there anything that pops out at you that you think people would like to hear about Manson or be surprised by? Or?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I hid from him that I was transitioning for a very long time, as I did my parents. It's really hard to try to make the decision to come out. I came out that I was gay, for a long time ago, but it took a long time for my parents to accept that. So it's been a journey for that. But I hid that from him because I didn't know how he was going to take it. I didn't know if he was going to, feel uncomfortable, and I thought that I would lose him. I consider us friends. That might be silly, because it's Marilyn Manson and who am I, Lauren Tillman. But I hid it from him. But I'll never forget that when he was performing in Oklahoma City, I went up there to see him. He was very kind to me. Let me just say ahead of time that we did, our past did go
Diverged,
go separate ways. But every single concert he had that I was able to go to, he got me tickets. Well, Judd did. Judd was his assistant at the time. But anyway, he pretty much got it done. But anyways, this particular moment, Lindsay had got me, had come to get me from the stands area and took me down to where he was, about to get ready. I think he finally caught on because my voice was starting to get lower, and I, started to kind of get more into the, masculine facial features. And he said,
"You're taking the hormones, right?"
Yes. He said, "Your voice is getting lower." And I said, "There's a reason for that." And he said, he leaned in closer and he goes, "Are you growing a penis?" That's Manson, that's Manson for you. Aww. And he, the way that his eyes lit up when he said that, it was like he was genuinely happy for me. And that just meant
it was a moment of like commiseration.
Yes. He was happy. And it not only was that, very relieving for me, because I was like, oh my God, he's happy for me. But it also was like a light bulb went off, like, he's accepting of LGBTQ people, and a lot of people might not know that. So,
well, especially because I'm glad you mentioned that, especially because some of the things that Evan Rachel Wood and some of the accusers are saying about how not only is he a misogynist, but he's a racist and he loves the Nazis and like all of this stuff that, like, those of us who've actually, like, in your case, know him or who've looked into his like biography and actually see that that's not the case, and so to hear that a group that there's a lot of prejudice against, it's particularly, this was 2016, right? And that's the thing too, like people, like attitudes change so fast. Like I think back to 2016, that was like, was that even before like now Caitlyn Jenner came out? I feel like,
gosh.
My point is, like, it wasn't like now where it's like, okay, this is something that people are encouraged to accept. I feel like back then, if he had prejudice against it or a problem with it, like, he wouldn't have been so supportive. Right. So I mean, it sounds like he's a very open-minded person, and so I think that's an important story. What else? Anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, well, it was very endearing to a lot of the time. When we were at his house, we would sit there and watch Eastbound and Down, which happens to be one of his favorite shows. So it was, just, if you can imagine yourself with any of your favorite celebrities, just you and that person hanging out at their house, watching their favorite show, you can't beat that. You just can't beat that.
Yeah.
So I was very happy.
That sounds like a great memory. Eastbound and Down. I've seen one episode of that.
It's not my type of humor, but of course I was going to watch it because that's what he wanted to watch.
You mean you didn't want to watch like some horrible, slasher film or torture porn or anything? Well, hey, this brings up another question actually. So, some of the accusers have talked about how he keeps his house painfully cold, and they make it sound like it's dark and you can't see anything, and the curtains are always drawn, and it's black everywhere, and it's almost like a scene from a Saw movie. The way they describe it, was it uncomfortable? What are they talking about?
Okay, so the way I would best describe this house is a museum. The reason I say that is because when you would walk in the front door, you're immediately greeted with all of these really strange, freaky, like, I guess they were probably props at the time. Like there was a wheelchair. I thought it was really cool. A lot of people might think that's weird, but I mean, again, we're talking about Marilyn Manson. Yeah. There was a wheelchair, and he had a story about that too, and I forgot about it. But anyways, there was like a headless skeleton, and I definitely had like nightmares about stuff in there, thinking that stuff's gonna get me. But that's just my own paranoia. Okay, it's my own anxiety. But so he had that. He had like kind of a bunch of like weird little trinkets around there. But anyways, so that was kind of probably would be an area that people thought was weird. But the temperature is totally normal. When you walk into his little room with the media room, completely normal. Now he does have the curtains drawn, but I would too. I don't like the sun.
So you didn't feel like you were like a dungeon or anything?
No. He had a little bit of sunlight coming in there, not too much.
Did you ever have to wear a cave lamp to get around?
Yeah. A black cloth. draped over her head.
And it was cold, right? But like, I mean, were you like freezing the whole time? You put on a sweatshirt, I would imagine, if you're cold, right?
Right. No, it was completely comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that just when you read the lawsuits or when you look or the interviews with the accusers, and they talk about like these minor details like this and try to blow them up into something like, oh, it was dark in there. You know, it's just it's really, it makes them very even less credible. Just curious, did he ever talk about? I guess probably never talked about like Evan Rachel Wood or any of his relationships or anything. Was there anything that any conversations that you remember you want to talk about that are like revealing in any way? It was pretty much. I mean, I know you're his assistant. You were probably around, but it doesn't hurt to ask, because one time when I was talking to Paula, when I was interviewing her, and I really knew nothing, I'd done no research about anything beforehand. And so we start talking, and then she stumbles upon telling me about how she spent Thanksgiving with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And I was just like, did you know that?
No.
Manson, it was Thanksgiving, and Amber Heard and Johnny had invited Manson to come hang out with them. And so Manson brought Paula, and there's a video you can see that was entered into court evidence. But anyway, she was there, and it's significant because Amber Heard claimed that Johnny Depp beat her up later that night or whatever. And so, so I was doing the interview with Paula, and I just happened to stumble upon that. Like, she's casually.
I wish I could say that.
Fine. No, this has been great.
In response to the comment about everything's black, he had one room in his house that was black, and it needed a touch up. Actually, had a little bit of black paint right there. You can see it. I actually painted that room in this jacket, but there was just that one room, and that was where he would paint his paintings. So I guess he probably wanted to keep that, really kind of black vibe. The walls were black, but the trim around the doors was like a glossy black. So that was a lot of fun to do, and it was a lot of fun to really be in a room that he uses to express himself in an artistic sense. It was probably his room to go and escape, or just to be creative. So it was really cool to see that firsthand. So
that's really cool. So I mean, that's the thing that I've learned over the course of this past year, is that he's really into aesthetics, and I didn't realize that because I wasn't a fan, and all I knew was like maybe like the songs I hear on the radio or on the Matrix soundtrack or whatever. But like it's really been interesting to look at the pictures that people post online, a lot of like costumes that he's worn, and to learn about and to read about the painting and the film, the films that he tried to get off the ground and stuff like that. Like, I think it's really interesting. There's a lot more going on with him than I thought, especially with the aesthetics. Cool. Well, if I guess, do you have any sort of parting words for our audience? Like, this is sort of your shot to say something to the people who are tuning in who have never met Marilyn Manson or have heard these accusations and don't know what to make of them. So, have anything you want to say?
Well, I would say this is a good situation for the cliche saying of "don't judge a book by its cover." Because he does have very wild makeup and stuff like that, but when you see somebody behind closed doors, they're 9 times out of 10 a lot more different than their stage presence. So I would say that do not believe the tabloids. Give this situation a chance for other people to speak out in his favor. Like, for this right here, really give yourself a chance to hear it all. Don't just listen to, her side. Listen to both sides. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I started out a year or so ago when these accusations first came out. I started out from a position of presumption of innocence, and let's take another look. And really, what's happened is over the past year, the evidence just seems to have really mounted up in Manson's favor, and we've seen a lot of problems emerge with these accusers, which we don't have time to go into right now. But check out my channel, look at the other look at the interviews I've done, look at the videos I've done on Manson's innocence. Also, there are great resources online, like the website Stand By Your Manson, or its Instagram site Stand By Your Manson, and others. All right, because there is a whole other side of the story out there, and it's actually the truth. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
It was very nice to meet you.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.